how do we know our so-called experts are lying to us about the coronavirus? How do we know our so-called experts are lying to us about this pandemic? It's really quite simple. They already lied to us when they said that vaccines eradicated smallpox and measles and whooping cough and even polio. And if they lied to us about vaccines eradicating those so-called infectious diseases, we know they're capable of lying to us again, and of course, you know they're lying. So where do we start making sense out of this madness that we're going through right now, this lockdown? We got to look at the vaccine graphs, or the graphs that prove vaccines never eradicated any of these diseases. I'll put links down below in the pinned comments, and I might even show some footage afterwards when I sign off here of some of those graphs. You can see them yourself. They're from the mid-1800s to the mid-1900s, and what we see with all these so-called infectious diseases that vaccines eradicated, we see a steady decline about every decade by about 10%. So within a 100-year period of time, they were gone before the vaccines even came around. This is a magic act. It's a trick. You got to understand who's behind the curtain, folks. These are sick people. They're psychopaths. They're magicians. They're masters of illusion. They're masters of misdirection. So that's what they do to doctors, cause and effect. Don't look at the cause. Just name the symptoms, the effects. And if we do look at the cause, we'll make up bogus causes. We'll say, we'll call some of the consequences the cause. That's not what's happening, folks. We know what's happening with these infectious diseases. I just did a video just recently. I'll put a link down below about disease mysteries revealed, causes and solutions. The powers that be don't want us to know. There are so-called infectious diseases and non-infectious diseases. The ones that are supposedly non-infectious, our so-called experts admit we don't know the cause. And then they claim they know the cause to these others, and their credibility is all based on a huge, big lie. That's the first thing we have to acknowledge and the first thing we have to look at. Think about it. If we know they lied and claimed they eradicated diseases that were clearly due to poor sanitation, let's put things on the timeline, folks. The Industrial Revolution, we all moved into cities. We weren't dealing with our waste matter. Didn't have adequate plumbing. That's why these are considered diseases of poor sanitation. That's why they still happen today in developing countries around the world. If you look at maps of where infectious diseases are coming from, they're all in these developing countries that have poor sanitation, and they're malnourished, and then they are subject to parasitic infection once you become that weakened. Parasites aren't the problem, it's the malnutrition and it's the poor sanitation. So that's where we begin. We got to open our eyes and take a look at what really happened. Industrial Revolution didn't handle our waste matter. We figured it was a plumbing problem. It isn't modern medicine that came and saved the day. It wasn't even modern plumbing, because this can be illustrated with ancient plumbing. When you look at when the Roman Empire was conquered in the west and in the east about 1,000 years apart, conquerors came in and they destroyed the infrastructure. They destroyed the aqueducts and the sewage system. What happened each time? Look at it. What happened? The plague broke out. The plague is just like measles or smallpox or whooping cough. It's not like polio. Now, polio is caused because of DDT. But these other diseases are diseases of poor sanitation, malnutrition, and subsequently parasitic infection. Hard to believe, isn't it? Well, let's take a look at these graphs. Take a good look at these graphs and ask yourself, what would be their motive to lie to us? Well, this is where it gets a little tricky, and a lot of people don't want to entertain the idea. It's hard to think that the psychopaths are in charge of the asylum. That's what they've turned our planet into. It's why we still have all the problems we have now. You got to understand who's behind the curtain. These are sick people. They worship Satan. That's their motive. They get off to us suffering. And the problem most of us have is we have integrity, and we can't even imagine someone could think and act like this. That's why they are able to get away with it. But that's changing. It's so exciting right now because more and more people are seeing what's being played out. They don't have all the pieces yet. And you can't connect what you don't have, and this is where so many people struggle. A lot of people are good at connecting dots, but if you don't have the dots, you can't connect them. And then they don't teach critical thinking skills, so if you're not given a gift at birth, or if you haven't figured out some way to acquire some critical thinking skills, you can do a lot of research and still not connect the dots. And I see examples of this all the time. I go to message boards and I see a person who gets the knowledge and they can't connect dots worth crap. See someone else who didn't have enough dots a while back, thought Bill Gates was a good guy. Now he has enough dots and he's good at connecting dots, real good at connecting dots. He just didn't have enough knowledge about what Bill Gates was all about. And once you have enough dots, you don't even have to be good at connecting them, because it's so obvious what's playing out before us. Take a look at how this whole thing started. There is this organization, an independent organization supposedly. See if I can remember the name of it. It's called Global Preparedness Monitoring Board. Pretty tricky. People don't think of who they really are. It's independent, right? Well, this is how the powers that be work. Read Trust Us, we're experts. They explain how PR firms work, how they create these so-called independent companies that make it look like they're not part of the bad people. Well, who's behind this Global Preparedness Monitoring Board that wants reports from everybody in case there's a pandemic? Who's behind that? The World Bank? What? The World Bank? International bankers, the people printing our money, making us debt slaves. Who else is in there? Well, the World Gotta slip a tongue. The World Health Organization, the World Whores Organization, funded mostly by Bill Gates. Again, you look at all the pieces, you look at the key players, you see where Fauci plays on the board of all these different organizations, how they're part of Event 201. Did I say that right? Is Event 201? I think that's what it was. Back in October in New York, they wanted to do a trial run. Let's see what happens if we declare a pandemic. Oh my goodness, folks. It's an exciting time to be in right now, isn't it? A lot of us are waking up. What I'm trying to do is get all you guys that are seeing the obvious connections to realize the most important one of all, and that is the health connection. There's a reason why the powers that be are controlling doctors, so they don't know any of this. They don't know the cause of disease. They don't know the solutions. And I explained that video I mentioned earlier. Please watch that. I go over a lot of things. I explain the disease process in detail in a way very few of you have even ever heard of before. Even some of our great doctors coming out right now, they're telling us a lot of good information, are missing this valuable knowledge. They need to have this to put into their group of dots that they're trying to connect. And that's what we got to do. Folks, it's going to be almost 30 years ago when I found the most valuable knowledge in the world. As soon as I found that, I said, I think this is number one. I got to make sure, let me go out there and find as many other pieces to this puzzle as I can. So that's what I've done in the last 30 years. I've been going out and studying everything I can. I have over 7,500 files that I've created, trying to make sure I have all the dots. And every time I create a file, what do I do with it? I put it in a puzzle. Every file belongs in certain puzzles. You go to any one of my files, you might see 50 related files to that file, meaning, hey, there's a puzzle with those 50 pieces, or 51. And then what I do with all these puzzles, I finally decided I had to figure out how they all connect. And I created a special teaching tool for this. I call it the ultimate schematic. I've done what no one's ever done, I've ever seen. I'm sure it's been done before, but for the obvious reason, this knowledge is being kept from us because it helps us connect all these dots together. If you're not good at connecting dots and you want to be, or even if you are, if you don't understand how this ultimate schematic works, you're missing out because it's so simple. Again, you got to go out and find knowledge. You got to put it in a file. You got to put that file in a puzzle. You got to take a step back and say, where does that puzzle fit with all the other puzzles? Where can they fit? Well, I found they can fit in either one of 6 boxes or one of 18 portals. Sounds complicated, but it's not, because it's really a 3-box system with pluses and minuses. There are the 6 boxes. And the 6 boxes, which are made out of 2 quadrant systems, both use 2 forms of 2-value logic. So they logically connect. When you interconnect them, you can interconnect those 8 boxes, those 2 quadrant systems, into 6 boxes, 3 boxes with pluses and minuses. And now you have 18 connections. All boxes logically connect to all the other adjacent boxes. So there's 18 portals that connect all these boxes, and then there are 6 main boxes. It's really simple because the ones we need to understand, there's 3 main boxes, and that ties into what I've labeled 3 stages of knowledge. In fact, every time you talk about anything, anytime you study things, you want to be able to understand what you're studying and where does it fit. Is it in this first stage of knowledge where we acquire knowledge, or is it in the second stage of knowledge where we apply it? Or is it in the third stage of knowledge where it's manifested? Think about it. Acquired, applied, manifested. Thoughts and actions and reactions. You get it? It's simple. Beliefs, causes, effects. You see the effect? They hear cause, effect. That's a powerful thing we need to understand, because that's the whole thing. That's one of the two forms of two-value logic that I created these six-box systems out of. We're humans, we're living systems, we're subject to the law of cause and effect, just like all matter subject to Newton's third law of motion, the law of action and reaction. Remember those two? Again, 3 stages of knowledge. The things we think in this first stage, that's our belief system. Things we do or have done to us, those are our lifestyle choices, as well as acts of nature, acts of war, crime and violence, accidents, things done to us. And then there are the things we get. That's our feedback system in the third stage of knowledge, letting us know whether or not we're satisfying our needs. And where are our needs? Well, they're in the first stage of knowledge, up here in the +8 box of knowledge. We have 12 essential needs, 2 additional temporary needs. We have to apply those, and when we do, we're up at the top part of this 3-box system with pluses and minuses. We're on the right path, we're applying knowledge. We're getting good results, and the good results are over here. This is where we have paradise, where we don't have any problems. But if we don't have this knowledge of how to live and understand knowledge of how to adapt, that's those 2 needs we need. If we're down here with false knowledge and we apply that, we're going to make mistakes here in the second stage of knowledge relative to the things we need. And that's where we get most of our problems would be due to the things we're doing ourselves. And this is where we're getting tricked. Our so-called experts are so clueless. They say, no, it's an inappropriate signal. The body's attacking itself. Or you're being attacked by these mystery germs and bacteria and viruses. So when they go back to the second stage of knowledge, they say, oh, it's things outside your control. When I look at the negative C box of problems down here, I want to make it simple. I got 20 pieces in the second stage on the wrong path and 20 up here too, but I don't take 20 over here, I only take 2. 19 goes in 1. These are problems that are 100% within our control. And then 104 problems that are outside of control. Again, these are accidents and acts of nature and acts of war, crime and violence, things like that, where we either have no control whatsoever or limited control. And the tricky part here is our so-called experts claim that everything is in a 104. That's what I labeled that piece number, outside of our control, the bacteria, the viruses, and then we don't know, so we'll say it's outside your control. No. Virtually every problem we have in this negative C box of problems is coming from that 103. They're based on the things we do, and that's the great news about this whole story, is the mistakes we made a long time ago that put us where we are, where we're suffering, we can correct those once we find that knowledge of how to live and then apply it. So if we're down here with false knowledge, there's a portal or a doorway we got to go through. There's 19 obstacles in there, and they can keep us from finding that knowledge we need up here in the +8 box of knowledge. Once we find it, it's no good unless we apply it, so we got to go through another portal. So there's 2 portals, 2 doorways we got to go through to solve our problems. Got to find the knowledge we're missing. I have it on my YouTube channel. And then we got to, again, apply it. Make some right actions instead of wrong actions. We correct the mistakes. And again, knowledge is worthless unless we apply it. So there's actually 2 ways we can make a mistake. We can apply this false knowledge and come over here, or we can take the knowledge and not apply it and come down over here. We can still make a mistake if we don't apply what we know. So there's actually a total of 21 main problems of knowledge I've identified. There's 2 forms of ignorance. There's the knowledge we're missing up here in the +8 box of knowledge, and then we got this false knowledge down here in the negative 8 box of false knowledge. And we can't learn anything when we think we already know. So that's our number 1 obstacle. It's this false knowledge. We got to admit we don't know. Then there are 19 reasons or 19 obstacles why we don't know. We don't know. There are 12 sorts of false knowledge and 7 wellness factors. And then those also strike twice, and they're in the other portal. Let me go back up over here. Once we get the knowledge, we got to then apply it. All together, those 21 problems of knowledge, 2 forms of ignorance, 12 sorts of false knowledge, 7 wellness factors, turn out to be a total of 55 problems of knowledge. And that all sounds complicated. The good news is you only have to worry about 1 of them, and that's where we have to apply what we know. But I learned a long time ago, we don't even have to know something or even believe it to test it. And I'm telling you, folks, that's what my channel's all about. Trying to get you guys motivated to test an idea whose time has come. It's an idea that can conquer every army in the world because it changes our mentality. It changes our terrain in a way you won't believe until you do it. Got a 2-hour seminar to help you do it. Seminars only last 4 hours, so I have 31 related videos. Virtually every video I do on my channel is to help you guys realize the role you play. Because our so-called experts aren't our experts. They've been duped, they've been tricked by some really sick people. They're lying to us. They lied about the vaccine graphs. They're lying about this whole pandemic thing. And that's the beauty. People are waking up to these lies. But now if you go back and realize, well, wait a second, they're lying about the vaccine graphs. They don't know the cause or have a solution for heart disease and cancer and diabetes and arthritis and on and on and on and on, all these non-infectious diseases. But the terrain theory does. So I'm going to leave a link down in the description box. So I haven't decided if I'm going to go back home and add any of those pictures. I think I might. Either way, testing ideas time has come, and check out those graphs and I can guarantee you, you're in for a treat. Okay, let's take a closer look at those vaccine graphs. This is my file on vaccine graphs, and like all of my files, I have related files at the very top. And in this case, I have 42 related files. My main file on vaccines is almost 1,200 pages long, and the first section in this file would be disease decline before introduction of immunization. This link is still active, and I'll go to that link in just a moment. There are 28 graphs that all show a steady decline in all of these diseases of filth that were supposedly eradicated with the use of vaccines. If we go down to the very last of these graphs in this section, table 28, we see the statistics on tendinitis. But if we go to the very next section, we have the graphs that come from dissolving illusions. Now when we go to their website, and I'm going to provide a link in the description box as well as a pinned comment for the links to this website, Dissolving Illusions, where we can see we have 51 graphs, and they're all listed down here, 7 across, 7 down, plus 2 extra, that's 51. We can click on any one of these graphs, and we can see a steady decline over about a 100-year period of time, because these were diseases of poor sanitation. We figured out the problem. It was a plumbing problem. We fixed it. It had nothing to do with vaccines. Here's the other link that I showed, the very first link in my file. And again, what we have here, a steady decline in all of these diseases, deaths of children under 15 from scarlet fever, diphtheria, whooping cough, and measles. And we see when all of these were introduced, diphtheria was introduced, what did it say, in 1940s. Then in the 50s came the pertussis vaccine, the whooping cough, and then 1965, in the 60s, we see the measles vaccine was introduced. Again, long before these came into play, supposedly, these diseases were on a steady decline, and you can go through this section also and see a steady decline in every one of these diseases. Now if we go back to my files, let's take a look at my file on measles, for example. Here's my recap from that speech from Dr. Russell Trawl in 1862. When the soldiers came down with measles, the disease of filth, they were given drugs, they developed hemoptysis. They were given drugs, they developed typhoid. So my suspicions were confirmed, Dr. Trawl said. The bleeding at the lungs, the typhoid, and the consumption were most clearly the effects of the remedies that were administered for the measles. Come over here to my file on smallpox. Is divided into 3 forms: discrete, confluent, and hemorrhagic. And the key here is that when receiving proper treatment, only the first form develops. We get the other forms because of the drugs given to us for those symptoms. And then there's my baby. If we go back to this other file once again, or this one website, let's just slowly glance down, and I'll let you take a look at these for yourself, realizing that knowledge is power. And when we get this kind of knowledge, and we can save our pets and our children and ourselves from being vaccinated, ow, we're in for a treat.